At the western edge of the known world lies a peninsula surrounded by the wild Atlantic and the tranquil Mediterranean, a crossroads of civilizations, cultures, and creeds. The Romans had once called it Hispania, the Visigoths ruled it as a kingdom of faded glory, and soon the rising tide of Islam would name it Al-Andalus. Few lands in medieval Europe would know such beauty and blood, such tragedy and triumph as the Iberian Peninsula. It was here, amid the rugged sierras and fertile valleys, that the clash between Crescent and Cross would burn for 700 years, a struggle that would forge the foundations of modern Spain and Portugal. Empires rose and fell, faiths intertwined, and cultures flourished even amid endless war. From the fall of the Visigothic kingdom to the surrender of Granada in 1492, the peninsula would be both a battlefield and a bridge between Europe and Africa, between Christendom and the Islamic world, between the Middle Ages and the dawning age of discovery. The Reconquista was more than a war of borders. It was a saga of resistance and rebirth, of kings and warriors, monks and peasants, of tolerance and fanaticism. It began in the shadow of ruin, with a single victory in a mountain valley, and ended with cannon fire echoing off the walls of Granada. Across its centuries, Iberia became a world unto itself, a mosaic of languages, dynasties, and beliefs. Here, Christian knights rode beside Muslim mercenaries. Jewish scholars preserved the wisdom of the ancients, and poets sang of love, death, and divine destiny. For every conquest, there was coexistence. For every crusade, a cultural golden age. From the Battle of Covadonga to Las Navas de Tolosa, from the rise of Cordoba's caliphs to the coronation of the Catholic monarchs, the story of Iberia is the story of endurance. A continent's frontier, a crucible where the ideals of Europe and the glory of Islam collided and merged. This is the tale of how a peninsula was torn apart and reunited, how kingdoms were born in exile and forged in fire, and how the last echoes of the ancient world gave way to the dawn of empire. This is the Reconquista, the longest war in medieval history. The Visigothic kingdom of Iberia had long been a realm teetering on the edge of collapse. Once a proud dominion carved from the ruins of Rome, it had descended into decay, its nobles consumed by intrigue, its armies thinned by internal war, and its faith shaken by heresy and ambition. For centuries, the Visigoths had ruled the land from Toledo, lording over a mosaic of Latin-speaking Hispano-Romans and Gothic aristocrats. But the dream of unity was an illusion. By the early 8th century, the Visigothic state had rotted from within. The crown was not a divine inheritance, but a prize wrestled through civil war. Kings were elected, then murdered. When King Witiza died around 710, the throne was claimed by two rival factions, one crowning Roderick, the other supporting Aquila II. Spain's fate was sealed not by foreign invasion, but by betrayal born of ambition. Across the narrow strait to the south, the Umayyad Caliphate, the greatest empire of its age, stretched from the Indus to the Atlantic. Its governors in North Africa, recently victorious over the Berber tribes, gazed northward across the waters of Gibraltar, where the white cliffs of Iberia glimmered like a promise. The fall of Carthage and Tangier had brought the caliph's reach to the very gates of Europe. And there, among the Berbers, a commander rose, Tariq ibn Ziyad, governor of Tangier, a man of both Berber and Arab heritage, driven by the zeal of conquest and the hunger for destiny. In April of 711, Tariq landed at the head of a small army, perhaps 7,000 strong, at a rocky promontory the Arabs would name Jabal Tariq, the Mountain of Tariq, known today as Gibraltar. His troops were not the legions of a formal empire, but a host of fierce Berber warriors, converts to Islam, led by seasoned Arab officers. They came not as mere raiders, but as agents of a greater plan. To test the strength of Europe itself, legend tells that upon landing, Tariq ordered the ships burned behind him, declaring to his men, "Behind you lies the sea, before you the enemy." There is no escape but victory. Whether fact or myth, the tale captured the spirit of the campaign. What followed was not just an invasion, but the birth of a new civilization. King Roderick, roused from the south, gathered what forces he could, Visigothic nobles, levied peasants, and remnants of the royal guard. But his realm was fractured. Some of his own lords had already aligned themselves with the invaders, seeking revenge or power. In July 711, the two armies met near the banks of the Guadalete River in southern Iberia. The battle that followed was a disaster. The Visigothic lines shattered beneath the discipline and mobility of Tariq's cavalry. Roderick was said to have vanished in the chaos, his jeweled crown and royal standard found floating in the river's current. In a single week, the Visigothic kingdom, heir to Rome's western legacy, was annihilated. The Muslim advance was swift and relentless. In less than 5 years, the entire peninsula, from Toledo to Zaragoza, from Seville to Merida, fell into Umayyad hands. Cities opened their gates in surrender or were taken by storm. The conquerors imposed a relatively light tribute on Christians and Jews who accepted Muslim rule, allowing them to retain their religion and property in exchange for taxes. The system would come to define the land as Al-Andalus, a province of the Umayyad Caliphate, ruled by governors loyal to Damascus. Yet even in the shadow of defeat, the flame of resistance flickered in the mountains of the north. There, beyond the reach of the Arab cavalry, lay the rugged lands of Asturias and Cantabria, inhabited by hardy mountain peoples, the Basques, the Asturians, and remnants of Gothic nobility who had fled the southern plains. The terrain was harsh, the villages poor, but the spirit of independence burned strong. Among these refugees rose a nobleman of Visigothic descent, Pelayo Pelagius, once a court official or royal bodyguard under Roderick, now a fugitive and a leader of outlaws. According to later chronicles, Pelayo rejected submission to the Muslim governor of Gijón and retreated deep into the Asturian mountains. Around him gathered warriors, fugitives, and monks, men who refused to bend the knee to the new masters of Iberia. In 722, the Muslim commander Alcama, supported by the governor of Córdoba, marched north to crush this pocket of defiance. But the mountains of Asturias were unlike the plains of Andalusia. Narrow valleys, treacherous passes, and forests that seemed to close upon intruders. The armies met near Covadonga, a steep valley dominated by limestone cliffs. There, legend says, Pelayo and his followers took refuge in a cave shrine to the Virgin Mary. Outnumbered perhaps 100 to 1, the Christian warriors launched ambushes from the cliffs, rolling boulders and hurling spears. Panic spread through the Muslim ranks. The valley itself became a trap. When the dust settled, Alcama lay dead, and the survivors fled south in disarray. Though small in scale, the Battle of Covadonga became the symbol of rebirth, the first spark of what later generations would call the Reconquista. Pelayo was hailed as the first king of Asturias, establishing his capital at Cangas de Onís. His victory inspired hope across the mountains and beyond, a sign that the tide of conquest could be resisted, that faith and courage could defy an empire. From that moment, a legend was born, not just of a man, but of a destiny. The chronicles written centuries later would proclaim that Pelayo was chosen by God to defend Christendom at the world's edge, and that from the caves of Covadonga would rise a kingdom destined to reclaim Iberia. In truth, Pelayo's kingdom was a fragile cluster of villages held together by loyalty and faith, hemmed in by far stronger Muslim forces. But in myth, it was the first stone of a new foundation, the beginning of a war that would outlast dynasties, caliphates, and centuries. As the 8th century dawned, the crescent moon of Islam gleamed over most of Iberia. Yet in the north, amid the mists and mountains, the cross still shone, faint but unbroken. The Reconquista had begun.